Friends, take care of your skin using aloe light juice and skin gel. My dry, troubled skin felt better right away. It's my #1 choice for beautiful and healthy skin. Using aloe light, aloe juice, skin gel, and lotion starts soothing and renewing dry skin and oily skin on contact, easing irritations on cracking skin too. Aloe Life Skin Gel is the best therapy without a prescription, feeling soft and smooth, balancing, feeling youthful. Use Aloe Life products including Skin Gel, sold nationally at your favorite natural food store and pharmacy. Online, find a store near you at aloelife.com or call Aloe Life 1-800-414-ALOE. That's 1-800-414-2563. Look and feel your best with Aloe Life.
Medical scientists worldwide are encouraging people to eat more fish. Most American diets are low in cold water fish that are abundant in important omega-3 oils. DHA and EPA are the vital components of fish oil that provide healthy benefits. Not only are they crucial for brain and vision development, they're very important for cardiovascular health. Carlson, America's leading Norwegian fish oil brand, specializes in both great-tasting soft gels that are easy to swallow and fish oil liquids that don't taste fishy. That's right, Carlson provides the most extensive line of fish oils to meet all your needs. You can take Carlson fish oils with confidence, for Carlson fish oils are tested for purity, potency, and freshness. Ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today. That's right, ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today.
Welcome to Here's to Your Health with Joshua Lane. Here's to Your Health discusses the current thinking in wellness, bringing you the most influential thinkers in beauty, fitness, and longevity. Your host, Joshua Lane, was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that helped bring wheatgrass sprouts and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health, Joshua Lane.
Welcome to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. Happy to say that my guest is Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Dr. Mumper has been a guest of the show and discussing her book, Kids in COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again, published by Skyhorse Publishing. And I was so pleased with the interview that I asked Dr. Mumper if she would be able to speak to us again, and she's worked us into her schedule. So I'm very pleased that Dr. Elizabeth Mumper, author of Kids in COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again, is a guest of Here's to Your Health. Dr. Mumper, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate the invitation to come back. I enjoyed it the first time, and I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to have you on the show. Now, there's been a lot of discussion recently about COVID, and so I'm hoping that more and more people realize that the ideas that you presented, which were dismissed by the mainstream and not reported, say, 4 years ago or 3 years ago, are now being reported. And I'm hoping that more people now recognize that what they were told on ABC, NBC, CBS really was not so much information about wellness, but really it was a marketing perspective, which is, I guess, a very strong statement. But it does seem to me, if we could jump right in, there were medications available that were widely used that were not allowed to be used when COVID arrived. What was the reason for that?
Well, I think there was a very clear reason. Early on, the primary objective seemed to be to develop mRNA vaccines that would be effective against COVID. And that platform had been available, but it had been used in only narrow ways, like for certain cancers. And I think that there was the hope that if they could demonstrate that the use of mRNA vaccines worked in a so-called pandemic like COVID, that they would be able to then use it anytime a new virus appeared. I attended a meeting of a vaccine congress where they were just giddy with excitement because they were like, this technology is so fast that if we can get rid of some of the regulatory hurdles we face, we could bring a vaccine to market 100 days after a new virus is announced. So I think there was a very clear pharmaceutical and, dare I say, financial incentive to prove that this worked. Now, most people do not know this, but a new vaccine for an illness can't get emergency approval if there are other existing medications that can be repurposed for that virus. And so, from the perspective of those that were hoping to bring mRNA to market for COVID and other illnesses, it was important to them to squelch information about other effective treatments. And the most egregious squelching, in my opinion, happened with ivermectin. Ivermectin is an incredible medication. It's used a lot in Africa because it's a great anti-parasitic. And many people in Africa call it their Sunday pill because they take it every Sunday, and this prevents them from getting destructive parasites.
Oh,
It has an incredible safety pattern, dare I say, more safe than acetaminophen or Tylenol for sure. And it has a very broad range of actions that very few other medications have. Among those actions, it's a superb antiviral. So we had every reason to suspect it would work well against the virus, causing it not to replicate so fast. And it's also a fantastic anti inflammatory. So, in the second phase of COVID, when you're not replicating the virus so bad, but the virus is causing havoc with inflammation in various body parts, ivermectin would be expected to be great. And in fact, that's what the real evidence showed. And I'm so surprised that even now, ivermectin is being denigrated. You may remember the FDA web based, come on, y'all, don't take horse paste message. And that's because it is used in horses as an anti-parasitic drug, but it goes so much further than that. And even last week, I was in Washington, D.C., when a reporter, asked why I would recommend ivermectin since it had been shown to, the papers were retracted, that showed how valuable it was. And he clearly was misinformed. The data was striking from multiple countries around the world that the mortality from ivermectin was dramatically less, somewhere between 70% to 82% less in people who received ivermectin. So overall, it just really lessened your chances of dying. But again, because there was this marketing, which you call it, I would perhaps go a little farther and say propaganda, that it wasn't a good thing to use. The pharmacies in my area wouldn't fill my ivermectin prescriptions, with the exception of two independent pharmacies. So, the chains like CVS and Walgreens had gotten this message from the federal government, and they were refusing to fill prescriptions. Now, I do appreciate the fact that pharmacists are part of our team and that they certainly have called me on occasion when they thought that my dosage was in error. And that was great because sometimes I was wrong and sometimes it was deliberate. But it is nice for them to have our backs. But I wasn't used to them refusing to fill an entire class of medication. And honestly, many thousands of people died because they didn't have access to this. One of my colleagues is a guy named Joe Verone, and he worked for something like 715 days straight in a Houston hospital. And he was enlightened and he knew about ivermectin. And at a time when the mortality from COVID was between 20 and 25% in other intensive care units around the country, His was 4%. So even in the ICU, only 1 out of 25 of his patients were dying. And that's because he knew not to put them on the ventilator too fast. He knew how to use ivermectin. He knew how to use IV vitamin C. Vitamin C is extraordinary. It has been shown to really help with sepsis, which is the when a bad bacterial infection gets into people's bloodstreams. And sepsis typically has a very high mortality rate. But patients who get IV vitamin C have a much decreased mortality from this dreaded complication of sepsis. And I can remember at my hospital, the very first meeting we had about how we were going to respond to COVID, I was the first to the microphone to say, I really think we should look at the IV high dose vitamin C protocols. And in my hospital, that never happened. Another thing that turned out to be crucial was vitamin D. It was unheard of to see a patient whose vitamin D level was greater than 50 nanograms per deciliter who died of COVID. It was very, very protective. And yet, most hospitals weren't even measuring vitamin D in their very sick patients, and they certainly weren't giving vitamin D acutely to try to help these patients. So, those are some of the things that I thought were so egregious during this so called pandemic. I do think that there were existing treatments that would have helped thousands of people that physicians and hospitals were discouraged from using, I think, because of this underlying priority setting of developing a vaccine. So it's really quite tragic. And I go into some of those examples in more detail in my book.
Right. Wow. Our guest is Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Dr. Mumper is an MD, author of a great book called Kids and COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again, published by Skyhorse Publishing. So Dr. Mumper, so as I understand it, there's ivermectin and avermectin. Is that correct? So one, ivermectin is for people, and avermectin is for, I guess, I'll use the word livestock. And so no one ever wanted to give avermectin to people. They always wanted to use ivermectin, but they insisted upon saying that it was for farm animals. And also, when I was listening to all this, a number of years ago, and I knew about ivermectin and other protocols, I was surprised that not one person on ABC, NBC, CBS said, oh, yes. And the two researchers who brought ivermectin to market, so to speak, both received the Nobel Prize in 2015, so it wasn't a million years ago, and that would have taken them 30 seconds, and they refused to mention that. And so when you try to talk to your friends, and your friends listen to ABC, NBC, CBS, etc., they just look at you like, you poor dumb guy, what are you thinking? Obviously, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It was very upsetting.
It was very upsetting. There were Japanese researchers that actually found the precursor to ivermectin in the soil. And as you pointed out, they did get a Nobel Prize. And not only did NBC, ABC, and CBS not mention it, I'll tell you a story about Joe Rogan's podcast. Joe Rogan, who seems to have this very wide-reaching intellect, decided to take ivermectin when he was afflicted with COVID, and he got it from a doctor. And he had Sanjay Gupta on his show. And you may remember that Dr. Gupta is someone who frequently comments on the national news. He's a neurosurgeon by training. And Dr. Gupta essentially criticized Joe Rogan for taking ivermectin on the air. He later walked that back a little bit and sort of semi apologized, but it was true that it was not mentioned and that the media reported the sort of denigration of ivermectin. And as I was following the real time research that was coming out of South America and areas in Europe, in India, showing how great ivermectin was, there was a province in India called Uttar Pradesh, I believe, where they decided to give ivermectin prophylactically to their whole province. They had dramatically less deaths than the rest of India that did not follow that protocol. The other thing is that ivermectin is cheap. It's so cheap. And I hate it when cheap drugs that could be repurposed are overlooked or denigrated in favor of something new and shiny that's usually going to be much more expensive and that isn't going to have such a long track record in terms of side effects.
Right. Our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Mumber, author of Kids in COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again, is published by Skyhorse Publishing. Dr. Mumber, so you have a science background. You're a physician. For how many years have you been practicing?
45 now.
Okay, 45 years. That's a good long time. And so where did you receive your undergraduate training and where did you receive your medical education?
So I was a general science major at Bridgewater College, where my father was chairman of the history department, and thus I got to go tuition free, which was
Oh, nice.
fantastic for
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I went to medical school at the Medical College of Virginia, now Virginia Commonwealth University. And then I did an internship at the University of Massachusetts. And then I did my pediatric residency at the University of Virginia and was asked to stay on for an extra year as the chief resident. And in that role, I got to alternate making rounds with the residents with the pediatric attendings who were on the faculty. So I feel like I got such a great appreciation for the value of really critical thinking. Back in those days, on rounds, we used to really ask our residents, justify for me why you picked that drug, or justify for me why you think your patient doesn't need this, that, or the other. I worry with the way medical education has gone in the last 20 years that the young doctors now are very much being invited to follow protocols. They are given algorithms or protocols, and that way they are not doing as much critical thinking, I
Mm.
think, and they're not paying as much attention to their patients as individuals. So I really like to practice more precision medicine where I take into account my patient's background. That's why I'm so opposed to these one size fits all strategies, like everybody should get a COVID vaccine, even though we knew that the risks from COVID were very stratified according to age. And in fact, it wasn't until you got above 65 that you faced a 1 in 100 chance of dying from COVID. It was under 65, there was a gradient. And especially the kids that were so harmed by the lockdowns, the elementary school kids, they had a statistically zero chance of dying from COVID. And yet they were taken away from the teachers who may have been the only one that they were around that told them that they were a good kid or that the teacher was proud of them. They were put into homes where the adults in the home were under incredible stress, often having lost their jobs or being stuck at home all the time with their spouse and finding out that they didn't love spending that much time together.
Huh.
So
Right.
the issues of alcoholism and domestic violence and child abuse went up with these forced lockdowns. And that's one of my main messages of the book. I don't want kids to be taken out of school and taken away from their peers unless it's for an extremely good reason. And we can demonstrate that it's helping them to stay home, not that they're being asked to be human shields for the elderly, for example. One thing that really concerned me was the suicide rate in adolescents. As you know, Josh, when you're a teenager, your friends are everything to you. That's when you turn away from your parents, when you really want to fit in with your peer group. And to take that kind of networking away from teenagers caused significant anxiety and depression. When I was looking at kids in my office and using anxiety and depression scores, about 70% of my teenagers were either anxious or depressed. And even by March of 2020, so only a little over a month into the pandemic, the suicide rates in teenagers had doubled.
Wow.
So we saw incredible mental health fallout from these lockdowns. And as I say, I do not want to see that happen to our children and adolescents anytime in the future. So that's why I hope some people will read the book and understand what very flimsy evidence there was for these lockdowns. It wasn't proven that locking down children would prevent mortality in the elderly. And we have come to find out extreme mental health and educational consequences for the children that were locked down. So that is really important for your listeners to understand.
Right. Our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Dr. Mumper is an MD, author of a very excellent book called Kids and COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again, published by Skyhorse Publishing. Dr. Mumper, so because of the things that most Americans didn't really know 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and now there seems to have been a shift, a fantastically good shift towards broad wellness ideas, changing the food pyramid, a major thing, discussion how fluoride is not particularly good for us and how the European nations don't use fluoride. No one uses it but us, really. Germans don't, Swedes don't, Finns don't, Danes don't. Are you hopeful? Have things changed? Do you think, oh no, there has been a shift there? The wellness crowd, to kind of put it that way, you're thinking, are there more people listening now?
Definitely. I do have to give Secretary Kennedy credit for being a leader here, despite how much pushback he gets and how much criticism. I think he was very wise to start with the war on processed foods, because we know that even one fast food meal will increase your pro-inflammatory cytokines for many hours afterwards. He's going after dyes in foods and preservatives that some children just don't have the enzymes to digest. I do agree that the science to put fluoride in the water was not sound at all. It honestly was a decision based on how to use leftover fluoride from World War II, believe
Right,
it or not.
right.
So there's a great book about that I would invite your readers to read about fluoride. I can't remember the name of it, but it's yellow and has a cute little 1950s girl on the cover.
Right.
Um, the other things that they're doing in terms of looking at lifestyle, trying to, set the bar that we should all be exercising more. It seems like when Kennedy's walking through airports now, somebody asks him to do 20 push-ups. I mean, 20 pull-ups.
Right.
You probably saw that video. And so that's my wheelhouse, this idea of integrative, holistic, functional medicine, where we look at root causes. We, in my opinion, have to get away from the protocol driven. Let's give you one diagnosis and find the one pill that's the best, for that diagnosis. Notice I say the pill for the diagnosis,
Right.
not the pill for the person.
Right.
And we know that if we pay attention to lifestyle factors like nutrition, exercise, stress management, and strengthening relationships, we know that those things are fundamental to health. There are all these social determinants of health that have to do with how many friends you have and whether you've got close confidants. And that was butchered during COVID. I do not want to see that happen again.
Our guest is Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Dr. Mumper is an MD, author of a book I suggest you read called Kids and COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again. Dr. Mumper, because you really are an important researcher and practitioner of wellness, are you hopeful now? Has there been enough? Are there more people now who understand these ideas so that we're not going to get shut down again?
I am hopeful that during this administration, we won't get shut down again. What I worry is with the upcoming presidential election in 3 years from
Right.
now, that another administration may try to undo the progress that we've made,
Right.
not for medical reasons, but because of the pushback against Senator Kennedy, the people that do not love Donald Trump and therefore don't want to perpetuate things that happened in his administration. And I do worry that political will can sometimes really change the patterns of what's happened during the current administration, particularly at HHS. HHS has dominion over the National Institute of Health and the FDA and the CDC. And those are so important for mapping out our country's future health initiatives. So I'm hopeful that what happens under Senator Kennedy's leadership will be perpetuated.
Whoa. Our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Mumper, the MD. Dr. Mumper is the author of Kids in COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again from Skyas Publishing. Dr. Mumper, so where can we purchase a copy of Kids in COVID?
I invite you to go to Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Barnes and Noble does not keep this book in stock unless enough people ask for it.
Right.
So it does need to be ordered, unfortunately.
Okay. Dr. Elizabeth Mumper, the MD, her second visit to the show. I'm very pleased that she was able to speak to us. The book is called Kids in COVID, Costly Mistakes That Must Never Happen Again. And luckily, I guess enough people are hearing information now that things seem to have gotten better. It's just remarkable. I am very pleased. This is Josh Lane. You're listening to Here's to Your Health. We take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Friends, say goodbye to rough, dry, and troubled skin. Even acne scars fade with AlloLife Skin Gel by AlloLife, not over-processed. So look for the dark yellow color, like the ancients wrote about, that gets to work fast in 5 minutes to 45 days. Skin Gel for more beautiful skin by AlloLife. Call 800-414-ALOE. That's 800-414-ALLO. An A-plus Better Business Bureau company. Skin Gel available at Whole Foods, Clark's, Natural Grocers, other quality stores, plus allolife.com. 800-414-ALLO. That's 800-414-ALOE. AlloLife, aloe vera. For you, 800-414-ALLO. Do something good for yourself. Zoom into the new year. Leaders in health products since 1991. AlloLife, for a healthier life.
Medical scientists worldwide are encouraging people to eat more fish. Most American diets are low in cold water fish that are abundant in important omega-3 oils. DHA and EPA are the vital components of fish oil that provide healthy benefits. Not only are they crucial for brain and vision development, they're very important for cardiovascular health. Carlson, America's leading Norwegian fish oil brand, specializes in both great-tasting soft gels that are easy to swallow and fish oil liquids that don't taste fishy. That's right, Carlson provides the most extensive line of fish oils to meet all your needs. You can take Carlson fish oils with confidence, for Carlson fish oils are tested for purity, potency, and freshness. Ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today. That's right, ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today.
The latest from the greatest, the best in new music by classic rockers, with your host, the insane Daryl Wayne.
This is Alice Cooper, and if Daryl Wayne is insane, what does that make me? Criminally insane. Stick around to find out.
Many of the artist interviews for the latest from the greatest have been captured on audio book. There is a volume 1 and volume 2. Great information and conversations with people in the industry and people surrounded by the industry, and of course the rock stars themselves.
I'm the Reverend Al Green, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne. And I said Wayne Insane.
You can find it on Amazon or Blackstone Audio. Search for the latest from the greatest from Daryl Wayne, Darrell Wayne.
Hello, this is Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne, aren't you?
Welcome to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. As new information becomes available about wellness ideas, there has been some conversation about the new federal vaccine guidelines. And there was an article I read that I thought was very worthwhile from the Vermont Daily Chronicle, written by Paul Bean. And there was, on this discussion of the new federal vaccine guidelines, some people, especially the mass media, forgets to mention that these new vaccine guidelines don't restrict states from adopting their own guidelines. And the Children's Health Defense CEO, Mary Holland, who's been a guest of this show, spoke about this at the Vermont State House earlier this week. And Mary Holland, again, the CEO of Children's Health Defense, testified to the House Committee on Health Care on the subject of prioritizing children's health and health choices in Vermont. And the visit was scheduled with Children's Health Day, which was an advocacy event at the State House promoting health policy choices, including vaccine-related issues. And Children's Health Day kicked off with a press conference in the Cedar Creek room prior to Mary Holland's committee testimony. And speakers also included Representative Greg Burt, who was responsible for introducing the health freedom bills, including House Bill number 60, an act relating to prohibiting discrimination based on immunization status. Mary Holland, the CEO of Children's Health Defense, told the committee some of the emerging data on childhood chronic disease, obesity, and vaccine safety in reference to House Bill 545, a bill that would allow the Commissioner of Health to issue immunization recommendations for children and adults as part of the department's immunization program. H545 was introduced as a response to a presidential memorandum and under the direction of Health and Human Services Leadership Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And this new leadership significantly overhauled the U.S. childhood immunization schedule by reducing the number of diseases with routine universal vaccine recommendations for all children from 17 to 11. And this aligns with schedules in many peer-developed nations, specifically in the advanced Western European nations, including Germany, France, and England. Vaccines previously recommended routinely, such as those for COVID, influenza, rotavirus, hepatitis A and B, were reclassified to either high-risk groups only or subject to shared clinical decision-making between providers and parents while preserving access to them through healthcare. And Mary Holland, CEO of Children's Health Defense, told the committee, all vaccines are still available. All vaccines are still covered by insurance. All vaccines are still covered by the Injury Compensation Program that was set up by the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. So Mary Holland tells the community, I'm not honestly sure what the problem is that Vermont and 18 other states believe that they're fixing that exists right now, because really, federal policies has not changed. Federal policies have not changed anything that the states can do in terms of vaccines. Mary Holland of Children's Health Defense mentioned that while Vermont is one of the healthiest states in the country, we are not excluded from some of the broader health concerns affecting the nation. Over 77% of young adults, 18-year-olds, are ineligible for military service, meaning that they don't have the mental health or the physical health to allow them to serve in the military. So obesity, poor physical fitness, mental health challenges. So we have sick kids, Mary Holland told the committee. Mary Holland said, I think we have to acknowledge that we have a chronic health epidemic. And the Make America Healthy Again report that was commissioned by the president about a year ago starts to address that. I know that one of the bills here, Bill number 61, is really to say anything that interferes with bodily autonomy and discriminates against people who are not in compliance with a violation of bodily autonomy should not be the case, that there should be full choice. Mary Holland said this in reference to a bill introduced by Representative Mark Higley titled H61, an act relating to bodily autonomy and healthcare decision-making. Mary Holland referenced in testimony what she considers the best health freedom bill in the country, which was introduced and passed in Idaho, called the Idaho Medical Freedom Act. Idaho is the first state that has passed a true health freedom bill, basically saying that nobody can be deprived of schooling or be deprived of a job based on their vaccination status, and that they can't be mandated to wear a mask or any other medical intervention. So basic ideas here really should be prior free and informed consent. That the modern standard for medicine, that should be the care for you and your minor children. We shouldn't be allowing 9-year-olds to make vaccine decisions, as is the case in several states in the country. Later in the day, the crowd that had gathered for Mary Holland's visit met for a panel in room 11 to discuss what was said and during the testimony and how everyone thought it went. To the surprise of none of those people, the committee did not ask Mary Holland any questions or even comment on Mary Holland's presentation. Still, the testimony was a step in the right direction because last year, Mary Holland was given a time to speak to have her name removed from the schedule an hour before she was supposed to speak. There have been important achievements since Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was appointed as the Health and Human Services Secretary, an appointment that was been very good for the country. These include the changes in vaccine recommendations, removing food dyes, increased research in what's actually causing autism, and changes in the recommended food and diet pyramid. So good things are happening. This is Josh Lane. You're listening to Here's to Your Health. We take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Have you had your Carlson Norwegian fish oil today? Decades ago, scientists discovered why Greenland Eskimos maintain healthy hearts despite their high-fat diets. The high level of omega-3 oils in their seafood diet protected their hearts. Carlson Norwegian fish oil provides those important omega-3 oils. The same omega-3s from cold water fish support maximum brain power, immune strength, joint comfort, and our vision too. Carlson, the very finest fish oil, is a valuable source of the important omega-3s EPA and DHA. Each teaspoon provides a full 1,600 milligrams of omega-3s. And its purity is guaranteed. Try it on salads and popcorn. It tastes like lemon, not fishy. Ask for Carlson, the very finest fish oil, at finer health food stores today.
Hi friends, Monica Brandt here for Aloe Life #1 in aloe vera. As a professional international athlete for over 30 years between track, ninja, and fitness, I want to remind you of daily exercise plus Aloe Life, my daily wake up to look and feel your best. Aloe Life products boosted victory for me in 2016, winning first place World's European Union figure. See AloeLife.com athletes. Plus workouts are easier too with Aloe Life products for digestion, energy, and stamina for success, or even dropping weight. It's so easy, friends, to choose a winning team. Aloe Gold or Detox Plus with certified organic daily green superfoods by Aloe Life. Be your own best athlete with Aloe Life products that work fast. AloeLife.com or 1-800-414-ALOE. Choose Aloe Life today, friends. I'm glad I did. This is Monica Brandt, Fitness Olympia champion and fan of Aloe Life for over 10 years. Aloe Life since 1991.
The latest from the greatest, the best in new music by classic rockers, with your host, the insane Daryl Wayne.
This is Alice Cooper, and if Daryl Wayne is insane, what does that make me? Criminally insane. Stick around to find out.
Many of the artist interviews for the latest from the greatest have been captured on audiobook. There is a Volume 1 and Volume 2. Great information and conversations with people in the industry and people surrounded by the industry, and of course the rock stars themselves.
I'm the Reverend Al Green, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne. And I said Wayne Insane.
You can find it on Amazon or Blackstone Audio. Search for the latest from the greatest from Daryl Wayne, Darrell Wayne.
Hello, this is Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne, aren't you?
Welcome to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. Well, we all had fun with the Super Bowl just the other day, and I'm happy to point out to you that you might have seen Mike Tyson's Super Bowl ad, and it was the Super Bowl ad, Eat Real Food. Heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson goes viral with a Super Bowl ad. In a viral Super Bowl ad, Mike Tyson urged Americans to eat real food. In the short video, Mike Tyson said his sister died at age 25 from an obesity-related heart attack. He also described a period in his own life when he felt fat and nasty and weighed over 345 pounds. Mike Tyson at 345. Something has to be done about processed foods in this country, Mike Tyson said. Mike Tyson delivered a clear message to the American people in a Super Bowl ad that drew both praise and criticism, the Eat Real Food ad. We are the most powerful country in the world, and we have the most obese, fudgy people, Mike Tyson said. This was in a 30-second ad sponsored by the Maha Center, according to Politico. Something has to be done about processed food in this country, Mike Tyson said in a voiceover as the video showed Tyson and his son biting into apples. In the short video, Tyson said his sister died at age 25 from an obesity-related heart attack. He also described a period in his own life when he felt fat and nasty and weighed over 345 pounds. Mike struggled with intense self-hatred, saying he wanted to kill himself. The ad ends with the words, "Processed food kills," and "Eat real food" flashing across the screen. The ad directs viewers to the new government website, realfood.gov. That's realfood.gov. The site includes a new federal dietary guidelines announced in January by U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It also features the Super Bowl ad. Before Super Bowl, Kennedy appeared on Fox News to discuss the Eat Real Food campaign and the ad. Kennedy said, "I think it's the most important ad in Super Bowl history because it's a crisis that is existential for us." Robert F. Kennedy, again, Secretary of Health and Human Services, said that when his uncle, John F. Kennedy, was president, 1960, the U.S. did not need to spend money on chronic disease. Today, it spends $4.3 trillion every year. That's $4.3 trillion every year. It's going to bankrupt us, Robert F. Kennedy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, told Fox News. RFK also said the issue was spiritual warfare because processed foods have serious effects on mental health too. Despite what the New York Times says, referring to a recent controversy over his comments linking schizophrenia to processed foods. Not that that's the only cause of schizophrenia, but it is a causative factor. The ad featuring Tyson was released on social media 2 days before the Super Bowl. A majority of parents consider processed food a major threat to kids' health. And a growing body of research links processed foods to chronic conditions, including diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. Most everyone kind of agrees with that. A growing body of research links processed food to chronic conditions, including diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. Studies also suggest that processed food can be addictive. An October poll by the Washington Post found that concerns about processed foods cut across political lines. It's not a political issue. The vast majority of parents polled considered processed foods and obesity to be a major threat to children's health. Unfortunately, the legacy media organizations attacked the Super Bowl ad. The New York Times quoted Lindsay Smith Talley, a nutrition professor at UNC Gilling School of Public Health, and Talley said the ad was counterproductive because it shamed people for their weight and their food choices. Politico noted that Kennedy's position on processed foods has widespread support, but his, quote, anti-vaccine policies sharply divide Americans. I don't think Kennedy's policies are anti-vaccine at all. They want vaccines to be safe. No aluminum, no formaldehyde, no mercury, no polyethylene glycol allowed in these vaccines. That's the real issues. More than 120 million people in the U.S. watched Super Bowl, and the ad has since gone viral on X and other social media platforms. The nonprofit Maha Center, which funded the ad, said on its website that the video is part of a broader campaign. The campaign will also include ads on taxicabs with the slogan, "Processed Food Kills," with images of champion Mike Tyson. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services announced that Tyson will join a press conference. At the press conference, RFK Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, and U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rawlings and other stakeholders will deliver an update on the implementation of the new dietary guidelines. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. unveiled new dietary guidelines for Americans, and the new food pyramid now puts protein, dairy, healthy fats, vegetables, and fruits at the top, with grains at the bottom. At the White House press briefing, Robert F. Kennedy called the changes the most significant reset of federal nutrition policy in history. The guidelines, effective through 2030, will become the default for what's served to school children, the United States military, to veterans, the elderly, and low-income families that participate in federal programs such as Head Start. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, "These guidelines replace corporate-driven assumptions with common-sense goals and gold standard scientific integrity. These new guidelines will revolutionize our nation's food culture and make America healthy again." For decades, Kennedy said, Americans have grown sicker while healthcare costs have soared. The reason is clear. The hard truth is that our government has been lying to us to protect corporate profit-taking, telling us that these food-like substances were beneficial to public health. Federal policy promoted and subsidized highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates and turned a blind eye to the disastrous consequences. Today, the lies stop. The food pyramid was upside down before. We just righted it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said. People may think the new pyramid is upside down, given the prior pyramid allotted the largest area to grains and the smallest area to fats, but it was actually upside down before. We just righted it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said. The early nutrition model wrongly discouraged healthy fats and protein. We are ending the war on saturated fats, Robert F. Kennedy said. Last year, the U.S. dietary guidelines limited saturated fats and recommended that people replace them with vegetable, seed oils, according to Nina Chajholz, a PhD, a science journalist, and author of Big Fat Surprise: Why Butter, Meat, and Cheese Belong in a Healthy Diet. Unfortunately, the new guidelines contain the same 10% calories cap for saturated fats. Professor T. Holtz wrote in a Substack post, despite Kennedy's enthusiasm for ending the war on saturated fats. The new guidelines website states that every American should eat 1.2 to 1.6 grams of animal and or plant protein per kilogram of body weight per day, along with healthy fats from whole foods such as eggs, seafood, meat, full-fat dairy, nuts, seeds, olives, and avocados. The website includes graphics encouraging people to eat butter. The actual guidelines state, quote, "In general, saturated fat consumption should not exceed 10% of total daily calories. Significantly limiting highly processed foods will help meet this goal. More high-quality research is needed to determine which types of dietary fats best support long-term health. People should also eat 3 servings of vegetables, 2 servings of fruit, and 2 to 4 servings of whole grains. The guidelines also encourage people to drink water, limit alcohol consumption, and eat the amount of food appropriate for their age, sex, size, and activity level. New guidelines, quote, directly address ultra-processed foods, added sugars. The pyramid doesn't include added sugars. People, especially children, are encouraged to avoid them entirely. Instead, they should eat naturally occurring sugars in whole fruits and plain dairy. For the first time, the dietary guidelines directly address ultra-processed foods and set firm sugar limits in federal procurement deriving a significant reduction in added sugar in school meals. That's a good thing. The new guidelines emphasize eating real food, defined as minimally processed foods prepared with few ingredients and without added sugars, without industrial oils, without artificial flavors, without preservatives. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, Commissioner Marty Makary, who also spoke at the press conference, cited a study published last October in the Journal of the American Medical Association that showed that Americans, including kids, are getting half their calories from ultra-processed foods. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last August reported roughly the same numbers. We now have a generation of kids addicted to refined carbohydrates and low in protein, Secretary Makary said. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. flagged this as a serious problem, he said. If a foreign adversary sought to destroy the health of our children, to cripple our economy, to weaken our national security, there would be no better strategy than to addict us to ultra-processed foods. It is shocking that our government helped to drive these cataclysmic changes in our diet. The damage was real. And SNAP offerings in stores will soon expand. More than 40 million depend on SNAP, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, used to call it food stamps years ago, for nutrition. According to a fact sheet about the new guidelines, some of the most popular SNAP items are sugary drinks, candy, and chips. Now, 78% of SNAP recipients are on Medicaid. These incentives for unhealthy food drive up taxpayers' health care costs. The U.S. could reduce Medicaid spending by $30 billion if the country reduced its obesity rate by just 10%, said the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz. Medicaid would see a correlated reduction in spending, Dr. Oz said. Dr. Oz also spoke at his press conference. The food on shelves at stores that participate in SNAP may soon change, according to Brooke Rawlings, who heads the USDA. Ms. Rawlings said, the USDA is finalizing what she calls its shocking standards. The agency will require that nearly 250,000 U.S. businesses that take the SNAP benefit to double the type of staple foods that they provide for America's SNAP households. Secretary Rawlings said, this means healthier options will be in reach for all Americans. So that really is very good news. This is Josh Lane. You're listening to Here's to Your Health. We take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages. Hi, it's Josh, host of Here's to Your Health. I'm happy to recommend Aloe Life for natural skin support, head to toe, scalp to feet. I use Aloe Life Skin Gel, and I know the Aloe Life Skin Gel's premium quality. The skin gel is concentrated. It works fast for itch relief and helps soothe skin with acne. The Aloe Life Skin Gel helped fade my teenage acne scars, and I'm happy with Aloe Life Skin Gel. It's the only aloe vera product with a deep golden yellow color from the mature whole leaf aloe vera. It contains over 100 actives. Only 100% certified organic leaves are used in the Aloe Life Skin Gel, and it's great for all skin issues. Aloe Life, 1-800-414-ALOE. That's 1-800-414